So we have these two different categories of people using drones, really people using the drones as the main tool and people using drones every once in a while because it makes part of their job easier.
You're listening to the Drone Radio Show podcast, the show about drones and the people who use them for business, fun, and research. Hosted by Randy Goers.
Hello, everyone. This is Randy Goers, and welcome to the Drone Radio Show podcast, episode 184. How are consumer and professional drones evolving? For that question, we turn to Jean-Thomas Celette, Chief Strategy and Product Officer for Parrot Business Solutions. Parrot is the leading European drone group that offers business solutions spanning drones, software, sensors, and services. The company mainly focuses on three major verticals: agriculture, 3D mapping, surveying, and inspection, and public safety. In 2018, the company introduced several new consumer and professional drones. These drones are smaller, lighter, and are designed for specific end users in mind. In this edition of the Drone Radio Show, Jean-Thomas talks about Parrot's new drones, how they've evolved to support different use cases, and what that tells us about where the market may be heading. But before we hear from Jean-Thomas, I want to thank those of you who are supporting my funding campaign. Now you have the option of making a one-time donation in any amount by going to droneradioshow.com/donate. Whether it's $1, $100, or much more, you can help defray the cost of production and keep the podcast going and growing. And if you want to make a monthly contribution, you can still go to patreon.com/droneradioshow. So let's find out how drones are evolving to meet user demands with Jean-Thomas Celette of Parrot. Let's pick up the interview where I asked Jean-Thomas to introduce himself.
My name is Jean-Thomas Celette. For the simplicity of the interview, you're welcome to call me JT. I'm the general manager of SenseFly, and I'm also responsible for product management and strategy at Parrot Business Solutions.
JT, give us some background on Parrot, its history, and its products.
Let me maybe start with SenseFly. SenseFly has been founded in 2009, and SenseFly is today the leading fixed-wing drone company. So we have basically over 50% market share in the fixed-wing space. Most known product is the EB. The latest version of the EB is the EBX, which we just released a month and a half ago at Interdrone. And the EBX is a drone that is used particularly for mapping. So anything from the geospatial industry, land mapping, cartography, then 3D modeling, especially in areas like mining, topography, as well as agriculture and environmental sciences. That's the EBX product that's done by SenseFly. And the SenseFly was acquired by the Parrot Group, and it's been fully owned by the Parrot Group since the end of 2015. The Parrot Group itself was founded in 1994. And Parrot has done a lot of things in the technology, in the connected object space. Since 1994, first started with hands-free car kits, but since 2 years is now 100% focused on drones. And at Parrot, we do both consumer drones and professional drones.
Earlier this year, Parrot introduced a new drone called Anafi. Can you tell us about it?
Anafi itself is a very small and light drone, weighs only 320 grams, and in that it actually packs a lot of power. So it has a 20 megapixel camera that can allow you to shoot amazing images. It allows you to take 4K videos. It has a tilting head that allows you to look up, which is something very interesting for both the professional use and also the personal use. On the consumer side, it's really the fact that it's a very light, very transportable drone that's absolutely, so to say, inoffensive. And by that, I mean it's so light that even, should you missteer it or should you have an issue, it is very unlikely to hurt anybody. At the same time, it's also very quiet, much quieter than the typical drones you hear or use. And that makes it very much socially acceptable, which is also a big advantage. It has a flight time of 25 minutes. It has a very strong wind resistance up to 50 kilometers an hour. So overall, it's a very practical little tool that gives you amazing results in terms of videos and images and is very transportable for both the consumer and professional.
What's the difference between the consumer and the professional models?
The consumer and the professional models are differentiated by the accessories and the services and the software that we offer with them. The drone itself, if you will, is the same in both cases, but the professional version comes with 4 different batteries, so it gives you a flight time of a total of 1 hour and 40 minutes, which allows you to do quite a bit of work. It comes in a professional bag. It comes with a professional grade service and support, which is also important for the professional users. And what it also does is it gives you access to photogrammetry, so you can use it to do 3D modeling because it packs a 1-year subscription to Pix4D Model. So it allows you to do 3D models of, your house, your terrain, do inspection work, these type of things. We're packing a very good device, a very good drone into a packaging that at a very low cost of $999 US allows you to do really amazing things like photogrammetry, building 3D models, doing inspection work in a variety really of use cases. And that really brings us also to the target user groups that we have for NFV work. So it's really across different businesses. It's people working in construction. It's people doing engineering and doing inspection work who will benefit from, for example, the ability to look up. It's people working in real estate and architecture who will really appreciate the ability to do 3D modeling. It's also people who work in videography and cinematography who want to get a first impression of the area they're filming in before they set up the very heavy film industry type equipment. It's also something used in surveillance, to do site surveillance, to do things like post disaster recovery, to get an overview of a situation. So it's really a multi-purpose professional tool that any professional can take with them. And from then on, it's really up to them a little bit to kind of test out the different use cases and find out where the drone makes the most sense in their business workflow. But the possibilities that you have are nearly endless.
Did your research reveal that professional users are looking for a smaller, more portable drone? Or did Parrot develop the drone in hopes that it would find a market with professional users?
No, we have very strong evidence that for a lot of businesses, it's actually important to have a very small, mobile, portable drone like the Anafi. What you say is true. Historically, people think, bigger is better. And I need a big drone because it needs to have a big camera and it needs to be more wind resistant. But these are all characteristics that the NFV work does pack, right? You have the 20 megapixel sensor, you have the 50 kilometers per hour wind resistance. And what we found out is that actually, if you look at drone users, you really have 2 types of drone users. You have, the drone professionals, where the drone is basically the work tool. So they will be flying, 8 hours a day, for example. And these professional users will typically look at more expensive drones where you can change the sensors, drones like the EBX, to be honest, where it's all about having a workhorse really to get the job done. And it's your main work tool. A lot of drone users that I would say up and coming are actually professionals that come from a variety of businesses where the drone is not the main work tool. For example, take a roofer that does roof repairs, for example, after storms, things like that. He will typically want to have aerial imagery or worst case, go up on a roof before he can make a quotation for a repair, for example. For him, his main work tool is not the drone. His main work tool, set of work tools is something very different when he actually does repair the roof. But the drone is a substitute that makes one part of his job much easier than before. It's the same if you look at the construction industry. If you want to do inspection or follow up on the progress of your construction or document damages, for example, that have been caused by a storm, there you might want to use a drone, or a drone is a very useful tool for you to get that data, and that will actually increase your efficiency and do that very cost effectively. But it's not your main work tool as a construction contractor, for example. So we have these 2 different categories of people using drones, really people using the drones as the main tool and people using drones every once in a while because it makes part of their job easier. And I believe with Anafi, we're really targeting the second category of people who would use a drone every once in a while, who maybe don't know quite at the beginning, what are all the different use cases that they're looking at. But they know there's some. They know they can benefit from aerial imagery. They don't want to spend $10,000 on a highly professional drone where they can do high-resolution thermal imagery. No, they want to get good RGB imagery. They want to maybe perhaps do a 3D model. And for them, getting something like Anafi work is the right way to go.
Based on the early sales for the Anafi, is it favored more by consumers or by professionals?
I would say both. Both consumer and professionals have been waiting for a highly professional, high-quality alternative that the Anafi basically presents. So both in the professional users, a lot bought it for, outdoor activities, making their holiday videos. That's the typical use cases we see with a very strong demand behind that. As well as on the professional side, we're just about to start shipping Anafi work, but we received a lot of pre-orders, a lot of interest also from our resellers who've been very active in promoting it and also basically passing the orders through.
From what I've seen, it seems to be a fairly simple drone to master.
Absolutely. It's very stable in its flight and it's very easy to use. We've had a number of professionals flying it in situations where they were very hesitant of using more expensive drones, like doing power line inspection, for example, or inspecting cell phone towers, where they actually had issues flying bigger drones, bigger multi-rotors because of the interferences that were caused. One of them actually fell out of the sky, and with a 2 to 4 kilo heavy drone, that's not an easy sight, if you will. And they flew Anafi and actually sent us back some pictures to show us what type of work they were doing. And they were very pleased with the image quality of the inspection work they were doing, especially with regards to the resolution and the accuracy they were getting in order to detect defects, etc. on the images. So that was very positive feedback.
Earlier, you mentioned a new fixed-wing drone called the EBX?
Yes, that's correct. So we released the EBX, which is the latest generation of the EB drone. Probably the 5th or 6th generation of the EB already. At SenseLife, we've been doing that for the last 9 to 10 years since the company was founded. And the EBX is a bit of a revolution in the sense that it changes everything compared to the last model. So let me go through the main points here. We changed a lot on the payload side. We used to have a couple of payloads, like mainly the SODA payload, the ThermoMap payload for thermal imagery, and the Sequoia payload for agriculture. Now we released 3 new payloads with it. The first one is the Area X, which is a payload that packs an APS-C sensor. The APS-C sensor is what you get in most off-the-shelf DSLR cameras, so a very good sensor for photogrammetry, which is very new in this type of drones now, and especially also on the EB. Gets you more accuracy, better images for everybody who's working in surveying, interested in mapping. We also released a new camera, which is called SODA 3D. SODA 3D takes our SODA sensor and puts it on a tilting arm, and that allows you to capture the vertical surfaces of buildings, of mountain sides, of mine sites, and allows you to do very accurate and very precise 3D reconstruction. You can also increase the coverage of the drone. So we now have a drone that flies up to 500 hectares in a single flight, where with the last version of the EB, we have coverage of 220 hectares. Now we have by far industry-leading coverage of 500 hectares in a single flight. Those are 2 very, very nice new cameras. We also have another new camera which packs an RGB camera next to a high-resolution thermal sensor, which allows you to both get 20 megapixel RGB images and 640 by 512 thermal imagery at the same time in a single flight, allowing you to do 3D reconstruction, orthomosaics, whatever you want, of very large areas with this new sensor. So that's on the sensor side. We also increased flight time. So rather than flying 59 minutes as we did with the EB Plus, we now have a flight time extension available where in a single flight you can fly up to 1 hour and 30 minutes, which is very interesting for both normal missions but also for BVLOS missions. We did a lot to make the product better, robustify it. It can now do steep landing, so you can land in much smaller, more obstructed areas, which is something that's very convenient to have on a fixed-wing drone. We also ruggedized the body, so it's shock-proof. You can land on a gravel pit 100 times over, and the drone will still almost look new. And we also made the concept much more modular so that in case you have to do maintenance or repairs on the drone, it's very easy to do because you can just switch parts by undoing and redoing a couple of screws, which makes it a very serviceable product, which especially for the type of professionals we were just talking about, those who use the drone as their main tool to do their work, is something very convenient and important for the business to have.
Sounds like it's the drone that serious commercial organizations would use.
Exactly. It's the go-to drone for the big mapping jobs.
Taking a step back, what do the enhancements of the ANFI and the EBX drones say about where Parrot sees the industry going?
We strongly believe that the small integrated drone, the light drone, is the one that will find more acceptance. And both the ANFI and ANFI work as well as the EB are very light drones. Also, the EB is a drone that weighs only 1.3 kilograms, more or less, depending on the configuration and the payload you put into it. It's made of very flexible materials. So even if a mishap were to happen, it wouldn't harm anybody. Both these drones are harmless. Both these drones are fairly quiet. And we believe very strongly that for the drone to be socially acceptable and be easy to use, these are very important factors. Now, we do see that there's, as I said, there's different types of customers. And for the personal user, for the consumer, if you will, we're very convinced that they like the smaller drones because they're more practical to carry around, bring on vacation, take it with you wherever you go. Very obvious reasons, I would say. And the professional users, they also always like to have something that's easy to carry. We always like to have smaller notebooks or replace notebooks with tablets and the like for practicality reasons. So that's something that also applies to the drone industry. But we also see that there's different segments. There's the segments of users that use the drone every once in a while, for whom the ANFI work is the perfect drone to get started. And we have high-end professional users who have very different expectations from the drone in terms of the image quality, in terms of the reliability, in terms of the precision, in terms of having the possibility to activate RTK also. We have the GPS precision down to a couple of centimeters instead of a couple of meters. And for those customers, we continue to develop products like the EBX.
Parrot also has a drone called Bluegrass. What does that drone offer?
Bluegrass is an integrated multi-rotor drone that allows you to do multispectral imagery of your fields and then do things like optimize a fertilizer application or just identify areas where your crop might not be growing as well as other areas. Or do things like, yield prediction on your fields. So that's also, I think, a very attractive product also in terms of its price segment that we have developed at Parrot. On the SenseFly side, there's a similar drone, which is called the EBSQ, which is also available, which obviously allows you to cover vaster areas, so bigger fields, typically of commodity crops like corn, rapeseed, etc. And then we have another drone at Parrot Business Solutions, which is called the Bebop Thermal. And that is, I would say, the most affordable thermal drone out there because it gives you thermal imagery at just $1,500, which is something that is, I think, unmatched in the industry today.
Now, everyone has heard about Parrot, but they may not fully understand where Parrot fits into the overall market. We all know who is number one, but Parrot is a very large drone company in its own right.
Parrot is number two in terms of drones, both in consumer and in the commercial space. And SenseFly, being part of Parrot, is also number one in the fixed wing space. I think we have a fairly good position in the overall market that is, as you say, dominated by one big player.
As the Chief Strategy and Product Officer for Parrot Business Solutions, what challenges do you see?
One of the big challenges we have is making the use of drones more acceptable and convincing, especially in B2B, more users that they can get a positive return on investment when they buy a drone. And this is something that we're very strongly doing at Parrot Business Solutions and at SenseFly. We've done a lot of communication with our customers, so getting feedback back from them, as well as giving them tangible data from other customers about the efficiency gains they can get by using a drone like the EBX or a multi-rotor drone. For example, in mining, typically when you do stockpile measurements, which is one of the big things when you're a mining company or a quarry or gravel pit, one of the big challenges you have is having your inventories up to date of how much gravel or minerals have you mined or do you have in specific areas. So you need a precise 3D model of the terrain. And historically, this is things that were being done on the ground by using laser scanners, very tedious and also typically very hazardous terrain, as you can imagine if you're on a mine site. And that is something that we are now able to do with drones like the EBX. By using drones like the EBX, we see customers of ours typically getting efficiency gains of a factor 5, 6, sometimes factor 8 to 10, depending on the industry, in terms of the time they gain, in terms of the return on investment they get versus the methods they were using previously. And I think continuing this work of convincing customers that there's an efficiency gain in the B2B market, explaining that to them, making the workflow, the end-to-end workflow also easier for them. B2B customers are typically not interested about flying the drone. They're interested about getting the results out of it and getting this result into their systems where it has to go and making decisions in the end. And this is something that we need to continue to make more approachable. And that is one of the things we focus on at Parrot Business Solutions.
Right now, what use cases seem to be showing the best ROI?
I think mining and mapping overall, the ROI and the business case is very well accepted. Does it mean we have 100% penetration in this industry? No, far from that. Obviously, as with every technology adoption, you need to go through the different cycles. You need to convince the customers. But I think these are typically industries where we are ahead of the curve or where the business case is clearer to a lot of the participants. In other industries like agriculture, I think it's beginning. We have a lot of customers that see the value already, but to convince individual farmers that they're going to increase their production and make more money at the end of the year by using a drone is a bit more complex in terms of education process.
Is Parrot and Sensefly working on machine learning?
If we talk about Parrot as a group, Parrot is not only Parrot Business Solutions and Parrot Consumer Drones and Sensefly. We also have other companies like MicaSense that do sensors in the agriculture market. And we have Pix4D, who is part of the group. And Pix4D is the company that I would say grew up alongside Sensefly and really pioneered doing photogrammetry on drones and 3D reconstruction by using drone imagery. And there's obviously very interesting use cases for machine learning once you have a 3D model, which is automatically recognizing in the 3D model, where are the trees, where are the roads, where are the houses, etc. And these are things that are available in Pix4D software.
Where does augmented and virtual reality fit in?
Augmented reality and virtual reality, I think, is something that has been part of the consumer drone ecosystem for quite some time. When we released the Bebop 2 drone, at Parrot a couple of years ago, we also integrated what we call cockpit glasses, where you can insert your phone and see from the drone's perspective in FPV, in first-person view. So I think this was already a first step into augmented reality. If we now look at the 3D models and how some of our customers are using the 3D models that we managed to produce with Pix4D, and navigating them using 3D glasses and positioning, etc. I think we can also talk already about virtual reality adapted in the B2B space, especially for CAD type applications. Or, you do a mapping of a terrain and then you overlay a house, for example, that you want to build on that terrain. And you also have a very nice application for augmented reality. So I think that's already happening. And of course, that's something that's continuing to evolve.
How about beyond visual line of sight?
BVLOS operations was a very, very different topic, but one that's very important to us, especially at Sensefly, where we developed the fixed wing drone. When we talk about being able to fly for 1 hour and a half now, it's obviously something that's very interesting for BVLOS type applications. We have a lot of customers who do that already, depending on the legislation and the country they're in, obviously. It's not as easy in every country. But we do have customers who do a lot of BVLOS type operations. And we at Sensefly are very committed to doing everything to facilitating more customers to get the necessary certifications to be able to perform these BVLOS operations. And one of the aspects that plays into that is obviously the inoffensiveness that we have on the EBX, because it's a very light drone, because it's a drone that even if it were to fall on a person, it's very unlikely to harm that person. It's very tangible and it's something very real that is already being applied in a lot of geographies.
Several of Parrot's drones offer a first-person view. Does Parrot see a growth in FPV in both the consumer and professional markets?
I believe on the consumer side, Absolutely. On the consumer side, it's an immersive experience. It's something nice to do. To have the virtual reality and the first person view is super interesting. In the B2B use cases, I'm struggling a bit more on the drone piloting side. It's not necessarily where we see the biggest demand. Where we definitely see demand and where we definitely see the market growing is on the downstream applications. So as soon as you have the 3D model, being able to navigate that 3D model using goggles in 3D or modifying that 3D model, because you do a 3D model of reality and then you're able to, as I said, insert new buildings, insert houses, do modifications, all of that in a point cloud that's very much depicting reality, and being able to visualize that with 3D tools, with 3D goggles is something that we see increasing demand and increasing use in a lot of business applications, yes.
How would you compare the European and American drone markets?
In Europe, it's probably very different from one country to another as well, but overall they're evolving, I would say, more or less at similar paces. The regulation in both areas of the world are different. But the type of use cases, the types of applications we see are pretty much the same. The US market has developed faster, as very often is the case for new technology. When I'm looking at other geographies, for example, Africa or parts of Asia, we see very different use cases, partially also because the legislation is not as far or because a lot of the land mapping hasn't been done. So they're actually very interesting projects that we're seeing done in these parts of the world that are maybe happening a little bit less in the more developed countries. For example, the World Bank together with the University of Zanzibar did a mapping of the island of Zanzibar. So the entire island, which is huge, was mapped in I don't know how many EB flights, which is obviously very cool, interesting, and novel use cases in the sense that they're unique, or this was a unique use case because it was such a big area and because it was in kind of remote area of the world, if you will, that was done there. And especially also because it was involving a lot the local communities, local students who were then actually performing the flights. So you might see some differences like this.
What excites you most about the industry right now?
The most exciting part is that we think sometimes we've already done a lot, but we're really just at the beginning. And the possibilities that we have and increase in market penetration that we're going to see over the coming years, that's really still about to happen. So we're really just at the beginning there. There's so many areas where the technology is going to evolve, both in terms of fixed wings as well as in terms of multi-rotors, more autonomy in the way the drones are used. For example, more and better integration into industry workflows that is going to also be very important, and where I think also as Parrot we're very well positioned because we're not just tackling the drone aspect and making good drones, but we also have companies in the portfolio like Pix4D, for example, that are very much producing results that are then flowing into the business processes. So we see ourselves really as being the end-to-end drone group out there that understands and can solve business processes and bring drone to businesses in an end-to-end fashion.
And for my last question, JT, what message would you like to leave in regard to Parrot and the drone industry?
My main message is really find out your use case, find out how the drone can help you in your business. In case you are not already a drone user, and in case you are a drone user, please talk about it. Also reach out to us and let us know how you're using it, because this information is very important for us and for the industry in order to grow and continue to grow.
That's it for episode 184 of the Drone Radio Show. I hope you enjoyed hearing from JT Celette of Parrot. I want to thank JT for taking the time to speak with me. If you want to learn more about Parrot and their drones or want to connect with JT, check out the webpage at parrot.com. If you like the Drone Radio Show, please consider supporting the podcast with a small donation. The content is always free, but for as little as $1, you can help defray the costs of production. To donate, go to droneradioshow.com/donate or patreon.com/droneradioshow. And thanks for listening. Your support means a lot to me, and I hope you'll listen to more episodes of the Drone Radio Show podcast to hear how others are using drones for business, fun, and research. For the Drone Radio Show, I'm Randy Goers.
This has been the Drone Radio Show podcast. More information on today's show can be found on our website at www.droneradioshow.com. If you're using drone technology for business, fun, or research and would like to share your experience on the show, please visit our website and fill out a guest appearance application. And don't forget to follow us on your favorite social media channels.